Mommy, Daddy has a lover, and they're going to take all your money.
Most people think secrets are kept in locked safes or hidden emails, but mine was delivered in a terrified whisper from my 6-year-old son at bedtime. I thought I had the perfect life, the high-paying career, the beautiful home, and the devoted stay-at-home husband. But while I was working 60-hour weeks to build our future, my husband was in our garage whispering into a burner phone, plotting with another woman to strip me of every cent I've ever earned. He thought he was playing a masterclass in deception, but he forgot one thing. I'm a software architect. I'm trained to find the glitches in the system, and I was about to make sure his entire plan crashed and burned. Welcome to Voice of Alicia, where stories breathe, emotions speak, and every word paints a world of its own. Close your eyes, relax your mind, and step into a story crafted just for you. I sat on the edge of the bed, the familiar scent of lavender laundry detergent filling the room, trying to shake off the exhaustion of a long day at work. My 6-year-old son, Leo, was tucked under his dinosaur duvet, his eyes wide and unusually bright in the soft glow of his nightlight. Usually, our bedtime routine involves stories about space travel or Lego adventures, but tonight, the air felt heavy. He beckoned me closer with a frantic little wave of his hand. I leaned down, expecting a secret about a lost tooth or a hidden candy bar. Instead, his tiny voice cracked as he whispered words that felt like ice water down my spine. Mommy, Daddy has a lover, and they're going to take all your money. I froze. My heart didn't just skip a beat. It felt like it stopped entirely. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the rhythmic hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of Mark, my husband, clinking a glass in the kitchen downstairs. I looked into Leo's eyes, searching for the playfulness of a prank or the confusion of a misunderstood cartoon. But I found only a terrifying, adult-like gravity. "Leo, honey," I whispered back, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "What are you talking about? Where did you hear that?" He chewed on his lower lip, his fingers twisting the edge of his blanket. "I heard them talking on the phone, Mommy. Daddy was in the garage. He said he loves her. He said they're going to move to the big house by the beach once they get your settlement. He said you won't have anything left." The settlement? That word shouldn't be in a 6-year-old's vocabulary. My mind raced through the last few months. Mark and I had been married for 8 years. Like any couple, we had our ups and downs, but I thought we were solid. I'm a senior software architect. I've worked myself to the bone to provide for this family. Mark had been between jobs for nearly 2 years, focusing on his consulting business that never seemed to generate any actual revenue. I didn't mind. I loved him. I wanted him to follow his dreams. But as Leo's words sank in, the consulting meetings and the late nights in the garage started to take on a nauseating new shape. I kissed Leo's forehead, told him he must have had a bad dream, and tucked him in. I lied to my son to protect his innocence. But as I walked down the hallway, the walls of the home I paid for felt like they were closing in on me. When I walked into the kitchen, Mark was standing by the island, scrolling through his phone with a faint smirk on his face. He looked up, his expression instantly shifting into that practiced, charming mask I had fallen in love with. "Hey, babe, is the little monster finally asleep?" I stared at him, really looking at him for the first time in months. The expensive watch I'd bought him for his birthday glinted under the recessed lighting. The designer shirt, the calm demeanor, it was all funded by my 60-hour work weeks. "Yeah," I said, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. "He's out. He had a bit of a nightmare." Poor kid, Mark said, turning back to his phone. Probably too many superhero movies. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to a man who might be plotting my financial ruin, staring at the ceiling. I knew I couldn't just confront him. If what Leo said was true, if Mark was planning to take my money, then he had a head start. I needed to know exactly what I was up against. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I waited until Mark went for his morning run, which usually involved him driving to a coffee shop 3 miles away, and I went into his office. I'm a tech person. I know how to find things. I didn't find a secret diary, but I found something much worse. I found a second phone hidden in the lining of an old laptop bag. It wasn't locked. Mark was always arrogant. He never thought I'd look. The messages were a punch to the gut. There were hundreds of them. Her name was Elena. She was younger, and from the photos they exchanged, she was living a life of luxury that I was unknowingly subsidizing. But it wasn't just the betrayal of the heart that broke me. It was the cold, calculated nature of their plan. He's almost ready to sign the new trust documents, Mark had texted her 2 days ago. Once that's done, the house and the investment accounts are legally tied up. She won't be able to touch them during the divorce. We'll be on the coast by summer. Elena's reply made my blood run cold. Make sure the kid doesn't suspect anything. He's been looking at you weird. They weren't just planning to leave me. They were planning to strip me of every cent I had earned since I was 22. They were planning to take the stability I had built for Leo and use it to build a nest for themselves. I sat on the floor of the office, the hidden phone vibrating in my hand with a new notification. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a cold, sharp clarity. I am a software architect. I build complex systems. I understand logic, contingencies, and backdoors. Mark thought he was playing a game of checkers, but he didn't realize I had been designing the board. I realized then that I couldn't be the victim. If I reacted emotionally, I'd lose. If I kicked him out now, he'd use the legal loopholes he'd been crafting to drain the accounts before a judge could even see the case. I had to play the part of the unsuspecting, hard-working wife for just a little longer. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a ghost in my own life. I smiled at dinner. I laughed at his jokes. I even let him talk to me about the trust documents he wanted us to sign for Leo's future. I told him I'd have my legal team look them over. Except my legal team wasn't our family lawyer. It was a high-stakes divorce attorney I'd hired in secret, a woman who specialized in forensic accounting and unwinding fraudulent transfers. My lawyer, Sarah, was a shark. When I showed her the messages and the documents Mark was trying to get me to sign, she whistled softly. "He's trying to commit equity stripping," she explained. "He's attempting to move your joint assets into a shell corporation he controls under the guise of a family trust. If you had signed this, he would have owned your house and you would have been paying him rent." The betrayal was total, but Sarah had a plan. "We don't stop him," she said. "We let him think he's winning. We let him move the money, but we track exactly where it goes. And while he's distracted with Elena and the beach house, we're going to secure the evidence of his infidelity and his intent to defraud the marital estate." The hardest part was Leo. He knew something was wrong. He'd watch his father with a quiet, observant intensity that broke my heart. One evening, while Mark was on a business call in the backyard, Leo came up to me and handed me a small, crumpled piece of paper. On it, he'd drawn a picture of me and him in a boat, with a big storm cloud over a stick figure that was clearly Mark. "Don't worry, Mommy," he whispered. "I'm watching him for you." I hugged him so tight I thought I'd never let go. "I know, baby. We're going to be okay. I promise."
The climax came on a Tuesday. Mark had arranged a romantic dinner at home, claiming he wanted to celebrate a big deal he'd finally closed. I knew what it really was. He wanted me to sign those final papers. I dressed up. I put on the necklace he gave me, the one I now knew was bought with my own money, and I sat across from him. He poured the wine, his hands slightly trembling with excitement. "To us," he said, raising his glass, "and to the future."
"To the future," I echoed. He slid the documents across the table. "I've got everything ready for the trust. Sarah checked them over, right?"
"Oh, yes," I said, leaning back and taking a slow sip of wine. "She checked them very thoroughly. But there's one thing you missed, Mark." His smile faltered. "What's that?" "The lover part," I said calmly. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost comical. He tried to laugh it off, that nervous, high-pitched chuckle I'd heard 1,000 times when he was lying about a broken vase or a missed bill. "What? Babe, what are you talking about? Are you drunk?" I pulled out the second phone, his secret phone, and placed it on the table between us. I hit play on a voice memo I'd recorded from his car's Bluetooth a few days prior. It was him and Elena laughing about how clueless I was and how they were going to spend the settlement in Ibiza. Mark stared at the phone as if it were a venomous snake. The silence in the room was deafening. "I didn't sign the papers, Mark," I said, my voice as cold as a winter morning. "In fact, while you were planning our future, I was moving every liquid asset that was solely in my name into protected accounts. And as for our joint accounts, I've already filed an emergency injunction. You can't touch a penny." He stood up, his chair screeching against the hardwood floor. "You can't do this! That's half mine!" "Actually," I said, standing up to meet his gaze, "with the evidence of attempted fraud and the documentation of your consulting expenses being used for your mistress, a judge is going to have a very interesting time deciding what's yours. Oh, and by the way, the locks are being changed in an hour. Your bags are already in the garage, the same garage where you thought you were being so quiet." Mark's face transformed. The mask of the charming husband shattered, revealing a panicked, desperate stranger. He tried to come around the table, his voice rising in a snarl. "You think you're so smart? You're nothing without me. You're a workaholic who doesn't even know her own son." At that moment, Leo appeared in the doorway. He wasn't crying, he wasn't scared. He was holding his iPad, and he had been recording the whole thing. "I know my mommy," Leo said firmly, "and she knows you're a liar." Mark stopped dead. Seeing his son, the boy he was willing to leave in a financially ruined home, looking at him with such pure disdain was the only thing that finally broke his ego. He didn't say another word. He grabbed his coat and walked out the door. The months that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles and paperwork. It wasn't easy, and there were nights when I sat on the floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. But every time I felt weak, I remembered that whisper in the dark. I remembered that my 6-year-old son had been the one to save us. I eventually found out that Elena left Mark the moment she realized the money was gone. He ended up living in a cramped apartment, working a retail job he hated, while I continued to build my career. But the money wasn't the victory. The victory was the first night in our new, smaller house, a house that belonged only to us. We were sitting on the floor, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, eating pizza and watching a movie. Leo leaned his head on my shoulder. "Mommy?" he asked. "Yes, Leo? Is the storm over?" I looked at his peaceful face and felt a sense of calm I hadn't known in years. Yes, honey, the storm is over, and look at the stars. I learned a hard lesson. Trust is a gift, but it shouldn't be blind. And sometimes the smallest voices in the room are the ones telling the biggest truths. I'm no longer just a software architect. I'm a woman who protected her kingdom. And as for Mark, he's just a bug in a system I've already patched. Thank you for spending your time with Alicia. If this story moved you, let your support be felt.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Your presence inspires the next tale. Until our voices meet again. Stay calm, stay curious, and keep dreaming.